Good afternoon, everybody. Let me get the chat started here. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday afternoon. After days of rain, still rainy, but at least it's warm. It says my connection is unstable. So I've been having some trouble with this laptop. I don't know what the issue is. It's a brand new laptop, but hasn't stopped it from acting weird when it comes to internet. Sometimes it just kicks off. It says can't see or hear you. Okay. Let's see. So everything looks okay on my end. Let me check. It says my connection looks okay now, but hopefully you guys can hear me now. And Things Break says I can see and hear you. Okay. So hopefully the Wi-Fi on this thing's going to work. So like I was saying, it's a brand new laptop, but if you know anything about automatic updates, then sometimes they just go in and have to work on every machine. So you might get an update for a graphics card, but now it conflicts with the Wi-Fi card. And I think that's sort of the issue that I had with my last laptop. I downloaded something and I couldn't see. I downloaded the updates and I couldn't see the screen for 6 months. And my wife also works in IT, and she's like, "Why don't you install the automatic updates?" Because it breaks stuff. So with this new one, I thought, okay, well, I'll just do that, even though I don't believe in it. And ever since I downloaded one, the Wi-Fi has been really flaky on this thing. Some days I just have to go reset my router, even though everything else on the Wi-Fi is working. It just does not like it. So anyway, we got some guys in here. Enough about that. Hopefully we're not going to have any more issues. So again, we got the chat up. So what's everybody working on today? I'm just going to be doing this by the seat of my pants today. We'll try and talk about some of the stuff we're working on this week, but I'd also like to hear from you guys. Hi, John. I got your email. I hadn't had time to respond yet, but hope you're doing well. Your package is going to be on its way tomorrow. Right, so just get up here and take you guys around the shop. Said he rebuilt his fuse box this weekend. Yeah, I saw that picture, but that was a lot to take in all at once. I was trying to catch up on some stuff and didn't have time to sit down and wrap my head around it, so I apologize for not getting back to you. Things Break says, I just finished my oil cooler seals and everything works, no leaks. Awesome. JR says, question on fuel lines in it bumped up. In the fuel lines in the engine bay, which would you convert it to? Are you saying this? Are you asking about the stainless steel lines or the configuration or using the Ren bay lines? So are you asking about would I change the configuration or the style? So the two fuel lines and the 87 turbo rubber fuel lines. So are you asking, should you put longer ones in that go around the exhaust, or are you asking what style are you wanting to go with, like the stainless steel braided, or just swapping them out? So what we use here is the Rinbei lines that are pretty times I get sent this style here. This is the nylon braided stuff. I believe this is from Lindsay Racing. Now this was given to me by the owner of the car to install. Okay, so yeah, go with OEM or stainless. I choose OEM here at the shop, and the reason for that is with now I don't know how well the nylon braided holds up, but with the stainless steel, the issue is that dirt gets into the stainless steel. You always want to kind of, stainless steel is fine, but you want it coated. But dirt, when it's exposed, it's just mainly for looks. Dirt will get in there, and over time, vibration will just cause the stainless steel braiding to break, and then it can break open. Now your lines are exposed, and not only that, it can puncture the fuel line. So I don't recommend uncoated stainless steel lines. I know the same thing will happen even easier with the nylon. It'll break open, and then you have exposed lines, but at least it won't puncture the fuel line. So we stick with the Aeroquip lines, which was factory lines. So if you're looking for those, we go for the Rinbei kit that has that. So we used to make our own lines, but trying to source all that stuff, it was just cheaper to start going with the Rinbei lines. John says I have a local company which builds new lines, bring them the old ones, and they clone them for the third of the price. Yeah. So the newer lines, you'll notice that the older lines, they weren't ethanol proof, and that's what happens to them. But it's mainly this jumper line here that you really have to worry about. You can see we have the Rinbei kit on here, and this is something that I'd purchased. So this is what we go with here. They're pretty much the factory lines, and they are ethanol proof. They're very high psi too. But this jumper line that was not ethanol proof to begin with, and if you buy the one now, I believe it says 89 stamped on it, then you don't have to worry about it. But I'd recommend changing those every couple of years, 10 years, depending on how they look. But yes, the Rinbei lines, they hold up a lot better. Oh, you can see these braided lines look great. Hopefully you guys can see them. They look great, but what happened is over time, just dirt gets on there, and then as they're vibrating and stuff, this would just break open. Then you have an exposed wire or hose. They also make fuel lines that are stainless steel. Don't really need it to be, but you can also get brake lines that are stainless steel because you want those to be very rigid, but they'll have a coating over it that keeps the dirt out. And they don't give you that look, but they give you everything that you want out of stainless steel line and everything that you don't. But fuel lines is one of those things that we replace a lot of. It's always good to replace your fuel line. Yeah. Hey, no problem. Well, I've just seen a lot of stainless steel lines that are destroyed and punctured a fuel line. So, but we've never had a problem with those. And again, I'm not affiliated with Rinbei or anything like that. We just try to use what we feel is best. Doesn't have to be flashy to be, well, with us, I would rather go with a product that is durable and long lasting than something that looks good. All right. So, what else are you guys working on? We got the red car running this week as well. Don says, "Good morning from snowy Northeast Ohio." Yeah, I heard you guys got some snow. It was pretty cold down here, but otherwise, just a lot of rain for us. Warmed up today, so hopefully it warmed up for you guys. It rained this morning and it's a little windy today, but otherwise it's warm. It's about 60 degrees outside, so a nice change. So once it warms up, we're going to be having our Helen meet. It's a good time to remind you guys. I try and do all this at the top of the show, but yeah, we got a Helen meet down in Helen, Georgia. A lot of people think that it's actually just sort of like a Hershey's, Pennsylvania meet where we sell parts and everything, but instead we do. It's actually a drive. It's a Porsche 944 drive. We get together, have some good food, and just get to meet other owners, hang out, stay in hotels, and eat a lot of food. Then we go for a drive and we do different stuff. And there's a lot to do down in Helen, Georgia. It's going to be June 6th through 8th. Go over to my website address.com and there should be a pop-up that shows you. There's also a place where you can register down below and they'll take you to a website where you can read all about the stuff. But that's going to be the Helen Meet, and I'm starting to call it the Helen Meet and Drive, so there's no confusion in it. And that's going to be June 6th through 8th. So I hope to see you guys there. It's the largest 944 meet in the Southeast, asterisk. But we usually have about 30 cars there. Sometimes it gets a little bigger. And Ruben says, do you remove the engine from the top or the bottom? From the bottom, because you don't have to remove the hood. And a lot of people will remove it out the top, but you have to, if you're not going to remove the suspension, then you want to leave the cross member in place. That's why people do that, because they try and cut the corner of not removing the suspension, but removing the suspension is actually faster, especially with two people. You remove the suspension, drop the suspension out of the way, and you don't have to remove the whole thing. You just drop one side, leave one side in, drop the cross member down, engine comes out. If you go out the top, now you got to have someone to turn the crank as you unbolt all 9 bolts out of the pressure plate. So you're trying to save time by doing that, but now you got to have 2 people and 1 person back there, and 9 bolts takes longer than us to just drop it out the bottom. So I've heard people tell me that it goes faster, but there's a caveat. Porsche even tells you that you must remove the engine from the bottom. And the reason, well, at least all in one piece. So even if you come out the top, you need to have the bell housing on. Well, not necessarily bell housing, but you need to have the clutch assembly together, which usually requires the bell housing on. And that's because you cannot assemble a clutch kit 1 bolt at a time. It must be done in a star pattern, or you're going to break your clutch, you're going to warp your clutch. The clutch must be done while the engine is out. So I've heard a lot of people say, bring it out the top without the bell housing and the clutch assembly on there and the pressure plate off. That's not how it's done. That's a good way to be doing it all over again because you warped your clutch or damaged your clutch. So you got to do it. You got to do the clutch the correct way. And some will argue it takes longer, but I'm telling you now, an hour underneath there, removing each bolt out of that pressure plate, you know, you're going to throw it away anyway, so it doesn't matter. But when it all goes back in, you got to do it the right way. And that to me takes way longer to me undoing 2 bolts in the cross member and just coming out the bottom. So, all right. Any info on the 2.5 liter main bearing availability? I've not heard anything. I haven't really looked into it. So the something to keep in mind is that I did order a set of main bearings from Germany. It took a while to get here, but I was able to get a set. And the Porsche bearings are still available. They're twice the price, and they're the same product essentially. But now, as far as when Glyco is going to start making them again, I have no idea. I've not contacted Glycol. I don't really tickle in my throat have any way of doing that. But at the moment, we've just been buying the Porsche bearings, and unfortunately, our price points are for the glycol bearings, so we're kind of eating those costs right now. Things Break says, I just did the boil test on one of my thermostats, Old Waller, New Waller, and Beck Arnley. The Old Waller opened sooner and wider than the others, so it's back in. The New Waller seemed to run hotter. That's very possible. It might be a good thing, but if they were both like ADC and the older one is opening up sooner, I have seen that happen. And if you know exactly the point where it's opening, if it's opening before ADC, that could actually mean that the thermostat's starting to fail. So what happened sometimes, it doesn't happen all the time, but I've seen this a few times, that an old thermostat will open sooner and the car runs cooler until one day it just fails altogether. So if it's not opening at the correct temperature, that's also another sign that it's failing. So when doing those tests, you want to make sure that it's opening at the precise temperature that it should be, because opening earlier might theoretically be a good thing, but it's actually telling you that that thermostat is about to fail. And the problem with the Beck Arnleys and a lot of those aftermarket ones, I always suggest a Waller one. Those cheap aftermarket ones, I've also seen those, they don't even have the opening temperature on it. So you'll go to AutoZone or wherever you get parts, and they'll just hand you a box, and then you'll test that, and it's like 150 C thermostat. It fits, but now the car is running extremely hot. Things Break says it was opening around 80 C, but I was surprised to open further. Okay, that's good. So yeah, I would probably, I don't test every thermostat that comes through here. So we do, I've done them before, but nowadays we just slap a new one in there and call it good. And if I have gotten them out of the box and the car is running hot, but typically it's a standard to put all new thermostats in here. So at the old shop, I had a stove and a pot where I could actually test them. Now we just throw a new one in there, and if it's bad, it happens. I had to throw in a new thermostat one time before a car left. We took it around and just could not get the temperatures right, and it was bad thermostat out of the box. So it happens. We just have to fix it. But with so much going on, sometimes you got to just throw it in there and hope for the best. But it's rare. Ruben says, have you ever had an oil pump losing prime? I had one on, had some scoring on the inside of the pump, made it hold its prime for 2 days only. Couldn't find anyone with the same problem. It happens. It's usually an issue with the OPRV. So if you drive it and, if it sits for 2 days, it's losing prime, then maybe the spring on the OPRV starting to go out. So I've had some really odd stuff happen with OPRVs before. I had a car that I owned for years. It was always losing prime. And even after I just stopped driving it for a few hours, if I it wouldn't be when I went to the store or something. It took longer than that. But at least by the next day, I would start it up. It didn't have prime anymore. So I'd have to reprime it. And I eventually just put a new spring in there and it worked. Then I had another car that I owned that we'd done some work to realign the housing after we did the oil cooler seals, and that car would not get oil pressure. Didn't matter what we did to it, OPRV in there. And once I put the OPRV in there, that one worked fantastic. It never lost oil pressure. I never lost prime, and it would get 5 bar easily. But if I put a spring one in there, it would not work. Didn't matter which one I tried. And there's a bunch of different springs. There's a bunch of different pieces and pistons and stuff. And it didn't matter which one I did. It would only run with the retrofit OPRV. And so I just left it in there. So the scoring on the oil pump's not a good sign, but if it's not much, I mean, that shouldn't have anything to do with it. I've seen it. I pulled apart the ones in my own car and was like, something happened a long time ago in it. You know, I would never put that back on the customer car, but I was young and I was like, it is what it is. Never had any problem from it though. JR says, recommend the specific batter model that is standard for 87 turbo. A battery model that is standard. Get the one that it calls for. Even if they're usually, I think they're like $230 now for like a good battery. But whether they're the Group G or something, I don't know off the top of my head. I usually just grab one. What are they? It's not going to say on this battery though, but so if you're asking whether you should go with a like a glass battery or a lead acid, or I don't know if they're making any other types or not. AGMs, what I was thinking of, the AGMs, the glass battery. I'll tell you, around here, if you bring the car to us, please have a lead acid battery. They're old style, but you can charge those up. So with the glass batteries, I have a charger specifically for glass batteries, the AGMs. They don't want to recharge. Once they go dead, even if they've just sat there, every time a car comes in, we disconnect the battery and we put the battery, it's heated and climate controlled in here. The battery shouldn't go dead, but those things love to go dead. And when you charge them up, they do not want to recharge. So what we have to do is we take a battery, put jumper cables on it, then we'll take a lead acid battery, put the jumper cables from that to the glass battery, and then we have to put the AGM charger on it that way. So it trickle charges the glass battery just to get it back, but you never get those things right again. So it's like, no frills, decent battery. So as far as a brand, I don't really know. So every car in here, we probably had 75 cars in here, and some are good, some are bad. We don't always look at the batteries that are coming in here, but I tell you what I've had personally that I liked was one of those Napa. What is that? It was just on the tip of my tongue, but Napa has a pretty good battery, and that thing lasted like 15 years and never had a problem with that battery until it slowly died. So what are the name of those? But anyway, it's just a Napa brand or whatever it is. I had one of those. Yeah, the Napa Legend. Yeah, I had one of those and it lasted 15 years. And I mean, I had I ran that thing dead twice, charged it back up because I'd leave the door open and while I'm working on it and the light would be on all night and the shop, and I'd come out the next day and it's dead. I'm like, ah. And then finally I did that like a third time, but the battery was already like 15 years old and And then I've noticed that it got harder to start, and I just ended up buying another one. So that is just like, I think they're a little bit more, and I've heard some people not have that quality out of them, but mine was fantastic. So I ended up buying another one, and I've got it, and I've had it in the car for like 2 years now, and it's been great. Don't ever have to charge it up. So if I had to go with a brand, I'd just go with another one of those. So that's what I did. Stuart says, "Hi guys, is there a way of checking the cooling fan relay on the earlier 944 with the AC fans won't work?"